Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Show. Today, I have a pleasure of hosting Christopher Roche, and we're going to talk about how to increase qualified pipeline and sales efficiency through mostly paid digital advertising. So, an interesting topics. We're going to go into the details, see how Christopher and his team are doing it. So, stay with us. But first, let's listen and watch that funky intro. And we are slowly but surely back. Man, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, I love the background and the lightning. I'm like now in the middle between workspaces, and
Yeah,
like I can't wait to find a decent one and then set up everything.
yeah. That was one thing that was kind of accidental when we bought the house. I think this was one of the kids' rooms, so they had this kind of like this was painted pink, and it was like everything was like had all these stickies on the wall. And then when we moved in,
Nice.
painted it, and then happened to set the desk up this way. And yeah, the amount of people that make comments on the background is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it looks always nice when you are inside the shadows. Let's
Yeah.
call it like that, and the focus is on the light as it should be. So.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just now counting on the natural light at the
Yeah.
moment, but it's good that it's sunny outside.
Yeah.
Uh, so tell me, how are you these days? How are things?
Good. Yeah, good. No, everything's going really well. We've experienced a lot of growth over the last specifically last 6 months has been pretty crazy. So everything is going really well. We're just figuring out now some issues you have with growth and kind of figuring that out, but all good problems on this side.
Yeah, those are good problems to have.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys specifically do. We mentioned a little bit something in the intro, but tell me a little
Yeah.
bit what you guys do and how did you come up with that? Because like I see lots of people ending up in demand gen, especially in advertising, but it's always a story that brought people over there, and I'm interested to find out yours.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of preface that, I think everybody at some point has the idea of starting a marketing agency. It's something that it seems to be the most
Definitely.
common business that people want to start. So when I was looking at starting my own company again and kind of branching out on by myself, I had the background in digital advertising, I had the background in sales, and I really wanted to focus on working with SaaS companies because of the fact that I was previously in the software development world. So a lot of my connections were B2B SaaS founders already, where we've really hit the market as a specialty or a niche point is that we only really work with B2B SaaS companies who are either Series A, pre-fund, pre-revenue, seed fund just starting off, who are looking to leverage digital marketing and specifically demand generation campaigns to scale and grow and get to either the next round of funding or to hit a certain profitability, a certain revenue goal. So we work with clients that typically are spending anywhere from the low side, 5 to 10,000, all the way up to $50,000, $60,000 per month across different platforms, and we help them understand how to scale from 5,000 a month to 50,000 a month without just blowing your budget, which seems to be a common mistake that I'm seeing with clients when they come to us is, they're spending $30,000, $40,000 a month, but they don't know where to spend it. And that's where we've found this really niche market and had a lot of success is working with clients who have just fundraised, who know that they have to scale, but aren't exactly sure of the right way to do it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and it's the hardest thing to get into that point of time. Most companies that do advertising will just skip that part and get to the next one when they already have like, at least a small team, when they already tried things, when they already, seen, this thing doesn't work, these things work, but let's use advertising then to kind of amplify it and get to the next level. And most companies would go and enter the market at that point. you
Yeah.
choose to go a little bit below. How you think? Do you work with companies that already have a marketing team, or is just like a one person just starting to set up things and you help them with one side of the stuff?
Yeah, we've seen both situations really. Most commonly, they don't have a an internal paid social media manager. So they might have a CMO, they might have somebody that is head of marketing, VP of marketing, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have somebody that has a specific set of skills of leveraging paid social media, throughout a demand generation campaign. So that's where we found the most success. Some of our clients don't have any marketing, and we are basically their first marketing hire. Which again, if you go out and you raise, $2 million to go and scale your company, and the cost of hiring that first person, I mean, you're looking at multiple six-figure salary just to get somebody into that position. Then you have the
Yeah.
single person risk. Then you have the fact of actually you don't know how to manage them or even know if they're doing a good job, because if you're the CEO and founder and you don't have a background in marketing, it's very difficult to know if the KPIs that they're giving you are actually driving revenue or if it's just fluff and vanity metrics. So that's where we found this sweet spot of either being a more of a consultative approach of the fact that they have an internal team and we basically act as a fractional CMO, or they have not a large team and we come in and we handle all that paid social for them, allow them to scale with that, and then help them understand what metrics we're looking for, what the KPIs are that we're measuring, how we're measuring success across the campaign, so that once they want to scale past working with Catalyst, they have the infrastructure to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking like it's good that I'm finding out about more and more companies having the right approach and entering that, because like the statistics when it comes to like CDA companies that are spending all their budget just on PPC on Google Ads trying to get leads
Mm-hmm.
is huge. And I'm actually happy that I'm seeing like the change in the market, and there
Mm-hmm.
are agencies coming up and telling them, aha, you can use it in this way a little bit differently, and maybe you don't spend everything on PPC. There are other things that you need to do from the start.
Yeah.
And having experience working with similar companies, like you're actually getting over there and implying those things that you already learned, because like in that phase, like C-Day is just basically throwing things out of the wall and seeing what's work when it comes to marketing in general.
It is, yeah, and it's also a big issue that I found with companies that have raised money that are looking to go on and leverage digital marketing is that they've never had to historically run marketing effectively. Most of the sales that have happened for that company, most of the revenue that's come for that company is from investors, from investor relations, from introductions from VCs, introductions from accelerators, personal relations of the founder. So they've never had to set up a systematic, organized approach to leverage digital marketing to acquire customers and then understand what that velocity is and how they can basically grow that to the point where they have to, hit certain metrics that they're held accountable for. So when suddenly you get a lump sum, excuse me, a lump sum, and it's like, hey, now you need to go and spend, $50,000 a month. Not everybody knows where to put that, and that's where, again, like you say, biggest mistake that I see, and biggest, I think, most common mistake is overspending on Google Ads because of the fact that it's direct response and it's easily attributable. But if you're not capturing demand, once you hit that saturation point, at that point you're kind of wasting your budget, and that's where we then shift into more of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and go for more of the demand generation and demand capture.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that start, because usually I don't know, like if you go on LinkedIn and check out the post and what people are saying about demand gen, about like if you go, usually you end up with Chris Walker, Refine Labs,
Yeah.
and he's explaining the way you need to do things. But what not many people are saying, like Chris is and some other people are actually, you cannot just go in and say, hey, the way you're thinking about it is wrong. You need to do it our way. There needs to be a systematic approach, which is a
Yeah.
little bit different, and you need to help them actually understand why like some things that they are seeing is wrong historically, but things have changed and then they need to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, you can't go in and tell a CEO that they're looking at marketing the wrong way. It doesn't go down very well. You have to find a way to justify and show them the results of what their current marketing campaign is achieving. So if they have a campaign and they're spending, let's say $10,000 a month, and they're running this across, lead generation, getting people to download, ebooks, white papers, webinars, whatever kind of MQL hamster wheel they have set up. When you look at that and you break that down per funnel and you say, right, on Google, it's costing you X amount to get a lead to come in. On Facebook, X amount. LinkedIn, X amount. And you look at what that cost per lead is across each of the channels, and then break down what the conversion has been from a lead to a sales qualified opportunity to a proposal being sent to closed one. What you're most likely going to find is that conversion rate from lead to close one is going to be less than 0.1%. So at that point, when you talk about, even if it's a $10 cost per lead, that's $1,000 customer acquisition cost. So when you start to add these up, and most of these companies aren't having $10 cost per leads, it's maybe $150 cost per leads. Now we're talking about $15,000 customer acquisition costs. When you look at that, depending on the ACV, the annual contract value of what you're selling, that can then result in really unprofitable campaigns, and it's very difficult to scale with that. So what we then recommend is saying, right, how can we look at this with a different approach? We know what's happening right now is not working. We know we have to have an overinflated sales team just to be able to handle the sheer volume of leads that we're bringing in at the moment. So if we look at switching and ungating some of the content, focusing that content for consumption within the newsfeed, focusing on how we can move people further down the sales pipeline without necessarily having to have somebody reach out to our team, because most buyers want to be able to self-educate on the product before ever talking to a sales rep or an account executive. How can we shift that point of contact from, instead of following up and hounding these guys as soon as they submit a contact form, to where they can actually reach out? We can then have shorter sales cycles, we can have lower customer acquisition costs, and we can have the same results with a smaller sales team, which allows us to scale much more aggressively, should we increase the spend and should we have it in the right places. But it's a longer term approach. It's something that you have to have buy into the concept from leadership. And that's where I think a lot of marketers and CEOs or founders really bump heads on this, is that the marketers understand, and a lot of marketers that I talk to, they want to switch from lead gen to demand gen. They just don't know how to pitch it effectively, and then once they've pitched it, they don't know how to report on it in a way that shows progression, because of the fact if you look at just simply the number of leads that are coming in, it's going to be less. And therefore, it's going to look like demand gen doesn't work in a 1 to 3 month window. So it's figuring out what you can report on that shows the progression, which is ultimately then going to allow you to get to the point where you will see the returns on the campaign, which is going to be 6 to 9 months down the line.
Yeah, I mean, the solution is always in what are we going to measure, right? In that way, because then you can see, these are the things that I need to do if I want to get this, and these are the things that I need to do if I want to get this. And always is like, lead generation has been here for a number of years, and it's mostly leads as a measurement because we couldn't measure marketing any other way. The decision makers didn't know how to do it any other way. Now there's technology, there's everything. We don't even need to, to get somebody's information to know that they have visited a certain page, or or those kind of things. And do we actually need to know when somebody is visiting the page?
Which is and that's the additional, that doesn't matter, and that's the biggest thing that I'm talking with clients that we need to know. We want to know if someone's going to read our white paper. Why? What difference does it make? Well, we want to get the contact information. All of their contact information is on ZoomInfo, Hunter.io, Snow.io. It doesn't matter which software you want to use. Contact information is no longer this scarcity. It's very easy to get contact information. You can go onto any software that does it and pull contact information. So if the only value is for you to be able to follow up with them, enter a lead nurturing sequence and have 50 emails go out there, which is just going to piss that person off, that's no value to the company. Whereas if you can focus on how we can educate them on your product or service, how you can educate them on the benefits, the way that the product works, the pricing model, how to reach out to you, client testimonials, case studies, you can educate on all of that natively within the platforms where these consumers are spending a lot of time. So whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or Reddit or whatever platform that you want to market on, and that really depends on where your ideal customer is. But when you focus the content in a way that's consumed where they're already spending a lot of their time, that can be really effective, because then you're educating them without them really knowing, to the point of as soon as they enter buyer mode and they're ready to buy and they're ready to go, from research phase into buying mode, at that point they are brand aware, they are solution aware, they can reach out to you, and you're going to experience significantly shorter sales cycles, higher conversions of closed won deals. Your sales team is going to do better, your marketing team is going to do better, and it starts to have this knock-on effect at scale, because the cost per reaching these individuals is so much less that your budget goes that much further. Especially now, what I'm experiencing, I don't know if you're experiencing the same, CPMs are dropping because there's less competition, because there's this fear of, recession. There's this talk of, everything's overvalued. Everybody needs to hold, their budget, don't spend on marketing. Whereas with my clients right now, we're increasing ad spend because we're having less competition. So our results and the cost per opportunities are going down. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody else can stop spending on marketing. That's great for us. I recommend it when people are like, do you think the recession is coming? You need to stop. If you're a competitor of my client, absolutely you should stop marketing, because now we can continue to capitalize, increase our ad spend, and drive more results, which is going to benefit our companies in 6-12 months time.
Love it. Love it. I think I was these days I'm talking to people, and there was a study by, I think, B2B Marketing Institute, or it was B2B LinkedIn Marketing Institute, or they have done it together. I don't know now, but it doesn't matter. Like, one of the things is that they found out, let's assume we didn't know that before, but like 95% of the B2B buyers aren't in the market at all. Like, only
I would argue.
5% or less than them are on the market ready to buy right now.
I would argue 5% is high. I think
Exactly.
I would say 2% tops is at least with my clients, and the number that we're seeing, 2% are ever in buyer mode. And what that means is that if you're trying to sell to them, if you're going to do outbound sales or you're going to do lead generation, not only do you have to drive them from the ad to the landing page, and let's say you have a 3% click-through rate, which is high. So 97% of people aren't ever going to click through. So you have a 3% click-through rate. Then from there, let's say a 10% conversion, which again is high on a landing page. Then from there, a 50% conversion of who's actually going to consume the content. Then from there, you've got a 3% chance of them actually being in buyer. I mean, we're talking minuscule numbers here. So when you focus on just trying to get those in buyer mode, you're going to really, you're trying to snipe prospects at this point. Like, you're trying to be the chance of finding them at that point is so slim. Whereas when you do this across a broader market, again, they don't have to be in buyer mode, because you can't sell to them when they're in buyer mode, but you can still educate them so that when they enter from the 97 to the 3% market, they already know who you are. And that's why you see shorter sales cycles. But yeah, it's a great point. And that's really demand capture versus demand generation. And that's, again, it's a fundamental misunderstanding that most B2B companies, they don't differentiate the two channels. And if you are getting into demand generation, a lot of companies right now, everybody wants to do demand gen. It's such a buzzword at the moment, but most people don't even understand the difference between demand gen and demand capture, which is really going to make or break how many deals are you getting in the next 3 months compared to how many you're getting in the next 12 months. And that's where understanding the difference and how you can allocate that budget, that will allow you to be successful.
Exactly. Like that was something that I understood as, like, from the moment I started Funky Marketing, like 2.5 years ago. I think that's where the buzz started around it. But it took me sometimes that I realized, like, not many people understand that, actually. And we need to simplify everything. And then, we started getting results and everything because we simplified the way we are actually, defining things. Like,
Yeah.
this is inbound, this is demand generation, this is how we are closing demand, this is why we need to create more demand, like all those things. And like, at one time we reached the point when everybody's talking about demand generation, and I felt like, I want to get your opinion about it, that's what I'm talking. I felt like demand generation was equal to advertising at one moment. Seems like, like, companies were thinking about demand generation in only two ways, like old school, so SEO, HubSpot and all those things, and on the other hand, advertising, which is what's happening right now. And it's actually a lot more, in my opinion, than just like advertising or SEO. There's a brand, there's organic, there are lots of different stuff that gets into that bucket.
Yeah, there's demand generation as a whole is a very broad topic, and it has several facets with that. When it comes to understanding that, and like you say, it's become a buzzword in the industry because everybody and their mother has a demand generation agency, and everybody talks about the benefits of it, and everybody should switch from lead gen to demand gen. Not every company is a good fit. Not everybody. It doesn't make sense for a t-shirt company that sells $45 t-shirts to do demand generation. You're just never going to get a return on it. You have to have that direct response to be able to really justify it.
It happens.
Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Okay, it happens. Live streaming.
No, you're good. No, I was saying, demand generation doesn't make sense for every company. If you're a t-shirt company selling $45 t-shirts, you're never going to get a return by investing on demand generation. It has to be direct response, try and make that. It's an impulse buy. So it doesn't make sense for everybody. And that's, again, the first thing is that not everybody should switch to demand gen. Companies that, in my opinion, have an ACV over $10,000, that's really the threshold. If you're selling something that's $50,000, $60,000 ACV, absolutely you should be doing demand gen, not lead gen. No brainer. If you're selling something that's $500 ACV, demand gen probably isn't going to work for you. And that's where, again, I have some clients where it's like, hey, this approach isn't going to be as effective. Let's look at more of a direct response because we're getting people to, really straight away go into and make that decision. In terms of mixing paid social with organic, there is a lot to be said. Coming on a podcast like this is a great example for both of us of demand generation techniques because of the fact that we are producing content that can be consumed organically within LinkedIn, within podcast platforms. Afterwards I can redistribute this for TikTok. Now this is a great example of individual creating demand. And this is where, when I work with clients and we have a CEO and we have a VP of sales, we're looking at how we can create that personal brand, that founder's brand, to the point of where they can start to really drive their own traffic, to the website from their own personal brands. And when I mentioned earlier having this overinflated sales team, one of the best examples that I've managed to convince and really get clients to do is that when you have a 10-person sales team and you're doing, MQL lead gen, they're all busy because they're getting a ton of leads. The moment you switch to demand gen, you got 10 sales guys that don't necessarily have that much work to do because they're not getting 1,000 leads a week that are coming in. So then when you switch that and say, right, we're going to switch to demand gen, let's have you focus now on how you can produce content, how you can connect with people in your industry and build authentic relationships via social media at scale. That is going to allow your individual sales reps to really be able to invest in their own demand generation techniques and their own personal brand. And that's very, very effective at scale over a longer time period. And that's what we've seen with our clients now, that individuals are starting to have these great personal brands. And for me, it's been helpful, the fact that I invest so heavily into it, for clients to be able to understand exactly the way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of like just looking at marketing in two ways, like sales activation or brand building. And basically, one is short term, the other one is long term, but bringing the results in the short term as well. And let's see, Amir said Patagonia does demand gen. Probably a comment when you were mentioning, how pricey is your product or the service, and should you do demand gen or no at the moment. But it's interesting, like Patagonia does brand a lot.
Patagonia has a great community and a great brand around their product. They have a great mission. They have a tremendous story going into that. And that, again, I mean, that is fundamentally basic demand gen with that. If you're a new company that's coming to me and you say, hey, I want to start a t-shirt brand, I'm not going to tell you to invest in demand gen and to invest in create a community straight away. I want you to invest in going and making sales and doing it at a profitable return on ad spend. So yes, there are outliers and anomalies with that. Patagonia is a great example because they do have such a strong brand. But yeah, the fundamental rule is, for me, $10,000 ACV is kind of that threshold.
Yeah, I remember like good old friend Pep Laya said when it was presidential elections in the US, and Patagonia stood out I think, against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But they took sides. That's what's important. And he said, "Them, I respect them, even though maybe I don't agree with them,
Yeah.
but because they took side, I respect them because they are brave. They have a point of view, and they go along with that."
Mm-hmm.
Another question: how would you go about motivating your sales team to add a bit of patience when building a long-term approach to business development, partnership building, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, with that, in terms of motivating sale, I mean, the best approach I would have is look at from a sales perspective, if the closed one or the opportunity is going to be a longer time, what are the metrics that you can basically validate earlier on? Because if you're looking at just in terms of, hey, it's a 6 month sales cycle. If you have a small sales team that you are working with right now, you can't wait 6 months to congratulate your sales team. So how can you look at what metrics that you can accomplish earlier on? Is that setting meetings? Is that being able to build relationships? One of the ways that I talked recently with a potential client who has a longer sales cycle and they want to build relationships with very clear accounts. And one of the best approaches that I've seen is actually creating a podcast like this and being able to go and interview potential buyers and your ideal accounts, because it's very easy to get on a conversation like this with a potential buyer. When you invite somebody to come onto a podcast, it's a lower barrier to entry in terms of being asked on a podcast. Most people say yes. Whereas if you say, hey, do you want to come on a sales call? Most people are going to say no. So that's the way for your sales team to authentically build relationships through their own personal brands. And then in terms of how you can then redistribute that content, how can you then make sure that they're seeing that content? How can you make sure that you're going to be connected with those individuals on social platforms so that they can start to invest in your sales team's personal brand and build that authentic relationship across social media?
Yeah, I mean, everybody likes talking about themselves. We forget that
100%.
fact, and that's something that has a very low entry inside it, and it's definitely better than going on with advertising right away and lead gen model and those kind of other things. But tell me, I wanna find out more about how do you guys go about creating demand. So we mentioned some channels, we mentioned some things that we are doing on those channels, but
Mhm.
it would be good to get more specific and give people insights on how they can do it as well.
Yeah, so with any client, the onboarding process, once we first month is all historical review, we look at the data, we break down the funnel, we see which channels have ultimately been driving revenue, if there has been revenue, directly attributable to different marketing campaigns. Then we look at saying, right, let's set up the demand capture channel first. This is really a fancy way of saying Google ads and Bing ads. So this is people
Hmm.
who are searching very high intent search terms. So financial forecasting software, podcasting software, whatever the example search term is, how can we find examples of clients that are actively searching for a solution who just simply aren't brand aware? With any demand capture channel, kind of like we mentioned earlier, there's only ever going to be about 3% of the market that's in buyer mode. So you're going to have a very quick saturation point depending on the number of search terms that you have, obviously, depending on the size of the market. For your company, that could be $5,000 a month. It could be $50,000 a month, depending on the number of search terms that you can really appear at the top of the page for. But once you identify what those high intent search terms are, don't go past that budget, because then you're going to see the diseconomies of scale of really in that diminishing returns of the fact that you're overbidding on keywords, you're overbidding in the fact of you're just spending too much than you need to. And at that point, we shift the remaining budget into channels like LinkedIn, into channels like Facebook, channels like Instagram, and we're starting to experiment more and more with TikTok at the moment. The easiest way to figure out what you should be spending on LinkedIn, for instance, is to go into the ads campaign manager, figure out who your ICP is, and start to size up that audience. And you can be very, very specific with who your real ideal customer profile is. And I can't stress this enough. When you're looking at an ICP, it has to be the top 1% of your buyers, not necessarily who would it possibly a good fit for? Who are the type of prospects that you send to sales and they salivate over? Because those are the type of clients that you want to create in this intended audience in LinkedIn. And let's say this is, 40,000 people, 100,000 people. The general rule of thumb that we use is that around 40% of the audience is going to be active on LinkedIn. So if we have a 100,000 people audience, the actual audience that we can hit on a regular basis is about 40,000. From there, then you can figure out what kind of budget it's going to take to hit them at a frequency of 4-5 times a month. And that's really where you're going to have to understand what that budget is. And then you can start to produce content that's going to help educate them on the product or service and bring them through a journey. And this is the demand generation. So I would start off with very high level carousel images showing the benefits of the product, introducing them to the product, maybe stories from the founder, podcast highlights, and things like this, where people can start to just have that little bit of brand affiliation, start to consume content. Then you can move into pre-recorded demos, 90-second demos, carousels of different case studies that are coming through, showing the results, interviews with clients, testimonials, and all of this content can be served up over a given time period where every month you refresh the content so that everybody in your ICP is seeing new content from you. So with one of my clients right now who are running, a very successful campaign with LinkedIn ads, every month we're uploading 2 new videos of case studies of different companies that are utilizing their platform and their software. So every single time that potential buyer comes on LinkedIn, they're seeing more and more companies in their audience and in their peers that are using it. They're seeing the engagement from people within their world that are saying, hey, this product is great, we love this. And we're starting to see how that is now driving a tremendous amount of organic traffic. We're really seeing an increase in the number of demo requests, and the sales cycle has gone from what was 270 days to less than 60 days now over the course of a 7-month campaign that we've been working with them. And that's been really effective. I see a question there that says, is LinkedIn ads working? If done correct,
that seems to be like the question everybody's asking these days. Like, we have an event tonight talking about LinkedIn, and like I asked guys, do you have any questions? Like, LinkedIn ads, are they working?
Absolutely. If you do it right, yeah, absolutely. It's having the ability to run a campaign that drives results, though. And what I will say, LinkedIn ads CPMs are significantly higher than Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So when you're looking at retargeting, I typically prefer to retarget on those kind of channels. So if somebody's hitting a high intent, page on the website, I will retarget on Facebook and Instagram rather than LinkedIn, depending on the budget mix that we have. But the ability to find and target specific demographics of who fits your ICP on LinkedIn is far greater than anything on any other platform. And therefore, the initial outreach and the initial demand generation that we're doing is always on LinkedIn, and then we retarget that on other platforms with different content, with different formatted content at a much lower CPM.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you mentioned here I want to emphasize. It is that, even though you're working sometimes with B2B companies, like Facebook and Instagram are still working as a proper channels.
Yeah.
Things are changing, but they're working, and I think you are using them the right way for retargeting when it's, CPM is even lower, like click-through rate can be higher because you're retargeting. And, because if you start with Facebook and Instagram, what I found out is, it can cost you the same as PPC is costing you on Google. And you're not getting those results. You're getting different results because obviously social media is awareness first channel. And, in that way, I love the approach. I love how you go with LinkedIn, targeting specific accounts first, getting them to know the brand, to know what you do, the product and everything. Like, not many people are actually using videos of a demo. I'm talking with lots of people. Not many have told me that, we are actually using videos, how we explain how the product works for advertising. Lots of them are kind of like afraid to show out things in that openly way. Let's call it like that.
Yeah, and I've had that feedback as well of, we don't want competitors to see our demo tour and things like that. If they're gonna go and get access, they're gonna request a demo. It's not difficult to. If somebody's gonna do it, they're gonna do it. The issue is, are you gonna not have the 99.9% of your market see it on the chance that your 1% competitor is gonna see it? And honestly, when you're running the campaigns, go in and exclude your competitors' companies, which is going to significantly increase the chance of them not seeing it, which is obviously what you want, and you're not wasting ad spend. And I would do that with any campaign, is exclude competitors. I'd exclude anybody that works with competitors. I'd exclude any current clients with any of the high-level outreach campaigns that we're doing. But video content is so much more engaging, and when you put it in a format that can be readily consumed. And we've been experimenting now with different size videos. Obviously, a lot of people are consuming content on their phone. It's not. And actually, for anybody that's watching this right now, I know we're getting comments on LinkedIn. I'd love if you could just type in desktop or mobile so we can see even who's watching this right now, what that makeup is. Because what we're finding is that buyers are consuming content more and more on their phone. And when they're publishing content, it's more on the desktop. So we're seeing kind of that mix across that. So when we look at the videos, the video like this, which is 16:9, horizontal, this is great on a desktop device. But when you look at a mobile, if you can switch this video around or even do one-to-one videos in that kind of square format, it's much more easily consumed. It's more of a scroll stopper. And you can looking at how the consumption rates of those videos, per campaign, how many people are reaching 100%? What is the conversion rate of getting to 50% of the video? Start to measure that on the engagement factors of that. And those are the metrics that, when we talked earlier, how do you value a demand generation campaign? How do you report on a demand generation campaign? How can you basically look at what the consumption is? These are the metrics that I would be, if I'm a CMO who wants to switch to this, saying to my leadership, hey, we've had 1,000 people in our target audience consume 100% of this video. It's cost us X amount, and we're seeing the engagement from these types of people on LinkedIn, which are the high-level indicators that not only is it being seen by the right people, but it's actually doing its job. It is actually entertaining. It's educating. We are seeing a real effect in the terms of these people can watch this. Whereas if you just do a case study, they have to click to it, you've no idea how many people are actually watching that or going to the landing page.
Exactly. I mean, for me, advertising in the terms of demand generation, in terms of B2B, it's basically amplifying what we are already doing organically when it comes to content distribution and the way we create content, basically making sure that the right people are actually consuming the content that we are distributing to them. Because if we give them just enough for each stage, they will go to the next one. And then we are basically creating relationship with them, exactly what you were talking about. And when they are ready, they don't go to Google.
It's direct.
They make buying decisions differently. If you are top of mind, if somebody is top of mind, great. It means that you have done what you needed to do. Otherwise, 3 more ways going into the community and asking like 20 people that they know over there. So it means this is also where you need to be with your marketing. So get that those people are recommending you. Being in the feed, which means they post something, people go ahead and recommend it, or just calling 3 other guys from the industry, more experienced one, for example, somebody that they're peers, and asking, hey guys, do you know, I don't know, Nemanja or Amir or whoever it is? Have you worked with them? Do you know, how do they do? Or do you know this tool? Have you tried out already? And this is how the decisions are being made. So your marketing has a task to be there when those things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really where, to me, that's word of mouth at scale. And that's what, when you invest into producing content, specifically video content like this that can be consumed, this is for me, I produce content every day on LinkedIn. I'm sure you've seen the TikTok style ones, I have the subtitles and all of that. When somebody takes that video that I post and then sends that to their CMO, and then their CMO connects with me on LinkedIn, and then he follows me for 2 weeks before reaching out, I can't measure that. And yet when on the form submission on my website, we say, hey, how did you hear about us? Hey, this person sent this, this, and this. That's word of mouth at scale. And that's what organic or paid social media can do. And the way that I view, paid social specifically is, how can we take those best performing pieces of organic content and basically guarantee the delivery of that content across my entire audience at scale? And that's where, when you switch the mindset of, I'm just looking to have this content be consumed, I'm looking to distribute this in a guaranteed way where I know it's getting in front of the right people, that's the way to view paid social. If you look at this of how can I create leads, it's just typically not going to win. It's going to be a very expensive campaign. And for me, I don't run any paid marketing for Catalyst for my own company. It's all, organic at the moment, because of the fact that we have such an organic engine and we have such a stream of inbound leads that are coming in right now. And once you set that up, if we wanted to grow 10x, I know that I could just flip the switch, distribute now with paid social my best performing content, and start to amplify that at scale. So once you figure it out organically, switching to paid becomes very, very easy.
Yeah, agree. And I agree because I've been trying out things for us just to see if we are doing this for the clients for the
Hmm.
product. Let's see if it works for the service-based companies, and it works really well. I can see like
Yeah.
at the moment, for example, like I was targeting US decision makers inside the companies, software based mostly. And so I wake up here in Serbia and I see a connection request for a guy. Hey, I listened to this. I was reading this article from your page. When I accepted, here comes the message. I actually went to the website and I
Yeah.
consumed this, and this. I like your approach. And then I come to the page and I see, he liked three or four other articles. And
Hmm.
that's when he consumed the content. It happens in 2 days. So usually it's not that fast. But I'm just saying that it can happen really fast if you get to the right person when it's the right time. But if not, it doesn't matter. Like let them just consume, follow the impressions, and make sure that the right people are actually consuming the content. And I think this is where the most difficult thing is, like convincing somebody who's like, we are all used to performance marketing, looking at
Hmm.
conversions, looking like what are we getting out of these ads. Like we just got, I don't know, like for $160 we got, let's say, 20,000 impressions.
Hmm.
Like we used to think that's nothing, back in the days, Facebook advertising, other things, we used to think that that's nothing. But
Hmm.
now on LinkedIn, when we know specifically who is in the target groups, we can add the names of the companies, people on specific positions. Then we know that the people who are retargeting are actually, they are the impressions.
Yeah, and you can look at that I mean, in LinkedIn, campaign manager, not to get too granular with it, you can see who's interacting with your content. You can see the industry, the job titles. You can even add one thing that I would recommend to everybody is that add the Facebook insight tag to your, or sorry, the LinkedIn insight tag to your website now,
Definitely.
because you can see the job titles of who is going to your website on LinkedIn, create that audience, be able to just monitor who's going to your website so that if you're not ready to run ads now, but you want to run them in 6 months' time, you can already see which job titles and which industries are already organically going to your, to your page, or who are going through, your organic LinkedIn presence right now. And then when you want to amplify that, it becomes a lot easier. So, LinkedIn for me provides a lot more value in terms of the insights as to who to target, whereas Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's just lower cost. So once you have the right people going to your website, the right people consuming the content, then you can retarget them on lower cost platforms. But that's where, again, it just depends on the marketing mix that you have. If you only have a $10,000 budget per month, you can't do all of this. It's too much. If you have $100,000 per month, absolutely we can start to look at this. And that's where, depending on the size of the client that works with us, we have a very specific recommendation, and it's really a custom recommendation. There is no set playbook that we have to, to work with anybody. It has to be all a custom approach that we take.
I agree with all. I think others are agree. Amir is always the most active listener, as you can see. I guess that's good. So, is there something that we didn't mention? I think we just scratched the surface, but it doesn't matter. We add another episode. Is that something that's on top of your mind that we didn't mention and that you want to say right now to the people listening?
I would say the biggest thing on the top of my mind right now, which I did touch on briefly, is the uncertainty of what's happening at the moment. Not only are my clients still raising capital successfully, we have a client that's just closed around, literally this month. We have another couple of clients who should be closing in the next couple of months. Capital is still moving. I know there is a certain uncertainty in the world right now with, valuations, and if you have the fundamentals set up correctly and you can show that you're acquiring at a profitable rate, you're still going to go out and acquire capital. So that uncertainty, I think, is a little bit superficial in the fact that it's coming from VCs that ultimately then get a discounted investment on your company as well. So, always take it with a grain of salt, everything that you're seeing, kind of these scare tactics with that, regardless of if you're able to, raise capital in 2 months or 6 months, whatever that timeline is. Investing in marketing now is going to allow you to set up a successful 12 months, 18 months. If you stop investing in marketing now, it's not going to hurt you in the next 3 months. It's going to be in a year's time when your pipeline is dried up, when you've had to downsize because you've not made the investments.
Okay.
Are you there?
Okay, I'm there.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just saying with it's not hurting you now. It's in the long term, it's going to hurt you, and therefore, what I'm seeing with my clients is increased performance at the moment, and I firmly believe, and I can continue to monitor it, that it's only going to get more efficient because so many companies are scared to invest right now. So if you can be aggressive and you have the runway to be able to do that, now is the best time to invest into demand generation. And this recession is going to accelerate that switch from lead gen to demand gen because the conversion rates that we've already talked about, it's too low. Whereas if you can successfully implement a demand generation campaign at scale, you're going to have far greater pipeline in 12 months' time.
Yeah, exactly like Locke had said, I think last week or something like that in an episode, like in a recession, uh, the demand for those who create demand increases.
Oh,
Because like
100%.
because most companies, what they do in recession, they go and we cannot reach to close desired accounts, so we're going to invest more money into trying to reach them, and then more and
Yeah.
then more, and they get into this bubble out of which like not all the companies are getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the number of you said like 2%, well, it's going to go lower, right?
Absolutely, yeah. People are gonna
So
people are gonna stop buying. People are gonna say, "Hey, we're not, we're putting a freeze on purchasing any new software for the next 12 months, the next 6 months, whatever that timeline is." So you have this now 1% who's actually in buyer mode, but how can you continue to serve and educate that 99% so that once basically the floodgates open again, you're top of mind and your product or service is top of mind? And that's a great way of putting it. And that really is the epitome of demand generation right now. And that's why I think there's going to be this accelerated shift. And if you can make that change now, you will have a very successful and fruitful next couple of years. If you struggle to make that change or you just simply ignore the change, you're going to get left behind in the next 12 months.
yeah, I agree. And looking from both of our sides, like I'm pretty much excited for what's coming. As being
Oh,
somebody who works in creating demand, I mean that's a great space to be at the moment.
yeah, we've had more inbound requests in the last 6 weeks than we have, kind of previously. Every month that's going on, we're seeing our demand is increasing because of that. And then especially when you look at being able to reduce costs. I mean, most companies that have a 3-person marketing team, that's $100,000 a month just in salary. Not to mention benefits and everything else. There's significant costs associated with having these internal teams that just simply aren't performing. So if you have an internal lead gen team and you want to make that switch, that's where agencies like my agency like your agency, that's where they become very, very cost effective to allow you to scale and allow you to achieve those results.
Agreed. One last question is tell the people where they can find more information about you, get in touch, get into the conversations. I know you are sharing lots of stuff, lots of videos, different points of view, and those kind of stuff. So, what are the addresses for that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, best place to find me is going to be LinkedIn for a lot of the content that I'm consuming or producing. Sorry, so LinkedIn is going to be one of the best places. I also I've been dabbling with TikTok. I say for the last couple of months, I've been kind of really starting off with that. But it's a great place to view all of my videos at once. So I say it's almost like a library for me at the moment, which is the way I really like
Yeah,
TikTok. You can just go through and consume them. So TikTok is also a good place. And then my website is catalystconsulting.services, which I'm sure you can put kind of in the description as well.
for
Go
sure.
through there. If you're interested in talking with us or potentially working with us, go through, submit a request to, have a call, a consultation. We can go through and see if you'd be a good fit and then kind of take any steps from there.
Yeah, guys, you heard. I have also one thing to add that can maybe add a value to you. Is I checked the website, the form. What can be a good addition to the forum is the questions. Why do you want to work with us?
Mm.
Not only how did you hear about us, because like we have that on the Funky Marketing website, and we get lots of different stuff. Like for example, like I got funked on LinkedIn. I got Nemanja on LinkedIn. Like
Yeah.
I went through a website. I resonate very much with the way you're thinking about B2B marketing and the strategy.
Got you.
Those kind of stuff, and it's great additional value to the where you are creating demand, but how are you doing it?
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
That's just I just wanted to say it because of the people listening. So maybe
Hmm.
somebody else can do it. But that's, adding the that questions on your form on the website is a great way to see where you are actually creating demand
Hmm. No, that's a great
and
idea.
what's happening. Guys, the only thing that I can tell you now, except keep it funky, is to get back to the beginning of the podcast, of the episode. Go step by step, listen to what we were saying. When you come up with something that is interesting or something that maybe you need more clarification, uh, find Chris on LinkedIn, message him, get in touch for all those things. And I think, or go to TikTok, as he said, and get into the loop of videos. Like, it reminds me of my wife, because she's on TikTok all the time. She doesn't have
Oh,
a
really?
profile, she's just listening.
Yeah.
So it goes in the loop, in the loop, in the loop. And what I think it's a great way, like, I don't know, I'm not consuming that much content, but I'm listening to what she's consuming.
Yeah.
And for example, I'm coming up with different ideas of how we can implement things back on LinkedIn, back on other platforms. So I think like TikTok is a great platform as well to get, pretty close to somebody who is creating over their videos or adding stuff or those kind of things. And Chris, thank you for taking time, for sharing all those things. For the end, just guys, keep it funky and see you in the next episode. Bye bye, guys.